Hey, shalom, shalom. Call hello, Yabashman Shai. Bashim Kaburash. This is part two of the lesson that I was doing on this interview or conversation between uh, Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee. I believe the last scripture that I had, it was Mark 3:25 on down, just going on about the division between them. The fact that this is a conversation. You know, the Lord is he's working in the earth, man. You know, he's working in the earth. You know, um, so this is a beautiful thing that these conversations are being had. Um, you know, and really, if you know, if you new to this thing, you know, America, hey, they back Israel. They, you know, and it's vice versa. You know, they help each other out, and they both really. It's like on one hand they help each other, but then they, you know, some Americans don't, you know, they know that it's BS, so they don't support them. But as far as the government, it is ran by them. You know, I'm gonna say that as well. They probably don't take the videos down, but it is what it is. It is what it is. If it wasn't the truth, they wouldn't take it down. You know, but it seemed like there was a little, you know, back and forth in between this interview. So I'm gonna play the video where they left off.
It'd be as simple as saying native Britons have
I
the
got
same
no problem with the native Brits having their land.
having the
But
right
my
to
point
their
is, I don't
land.
know
And
that there is
so-
a biblical connection for the Brits.
Okay.
But I would
So-
say,
so that's what it comes
take
down
that
to.
off the table. And I think there's still a basis for the Jews having this little bitty strip of real estate.
I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just trying to, at all. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're saying, because it's not obvious to me, and maybe it's an IQ problem, but I'm having trouble understanding it.
Salaki, it's kind of low. I can hear it, but I know y'all probably can't hear it. So I don't know why it sounds so low on on my end. Let me play it again.
But let me just go back to just clarify one thing.
Okay.
You've brought up international at least twice, maybe three times, as a basis for Israel's legitimacy. If Israel was out of compliance with international law, whatever that is, would it be less legitimate?
Depends on if the law and the way it's applied is legitimate. There are some applications of so-called international law that are not legitimate.
I agree.
Look at the ICC or the ICJ.
I agree.
Utterly ridiculous. One of the reasons I'm so grateful President Trump and Secretary Rubio are pushing hard, trying to get rid of the ICC and the ICJ, is because...
And I don't want to play like this all the way to like a certain point. I might have to like skip this because it's long, and I wasn't trying to play the entire video anyway. I mean, maybe skip to like maybe the 1 hour and 5 minute mark.
This is a brand new Dragon Ball mobile game. Brand new. Totally fresh experience.
Us in Genesis 15, all of Lebanon. I just want to get to this point. If Israel were to say, God gave us in Genesis 15, all of Lebanon, all of...
So he quoted Genesis 15 this time. So we can go to that. This is a video that I had of Jake, you know, showing who was over in Jerusalem in 1925, right before 1948, before the Balfour Declaration. As y'all can see, they had dark-skinned people over there, you know. Dark-skinned people, you know. Which a lot of them probably over there during that time, it was probably Hamites. They looked like Hamites, but, you know, Jake and Ham look identical as well. Let me see. That's what I had. So the land of Canaan is our homeland, and where, you know, Palestine is modern day. You know, the Lord gave us that. Technically, the Lord gave us the whole earth. You know, it says that in 2nd Ezra, I believe, the 6th chapter. So if they really want to get into it, you know, but, you know, Esau, you know, they're gonna tell you a lot of lies. But
Syria, all the way up to Iraq. Would that be legitimate in your view?
I don't think in this particular day and time they're asking for it.
Would it be legitimate?
I'm not sure that it would be.
See how he said, would it be legitimate if they got Syria and Iraq? Right? Let's look up where that is. Syria, it says Syria and Iraq. Let me see. So I see Syria. I need like a better. Let me see. A better map that shows me where. Let's just use today's term, Middle East, which is really Western Asia, which I looked up the other day as well, which I knew this already, but they changed that area, the name of what it's called, because they want to fit their Edomite narrative. That just proves that the earth was given unto them, you know. So I'm gonna use this just for their sake, and just edification. It's gonna show it better. So let me see. Where is it at? So he said Syria. He said Syria and Iraq. Right? Now, Jake was all through there, man. So the answer is, Jake was all through there too.
Why? Because you just said that God gave it to them.
Because I think that there is
and it's to the real people, man, not them.
An understanding that the people of Israel today, now if they end up getting attacked by all these places and they win that war and they take that land, then okay, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, he said he's saying yes, pretty much it sounds like, that they could probably get that land. But he didn't really give a straight answer. But he said, if they get into a war, if you was the people, you wouldn't get into the war, man. I kind of said that in the first video. I can go into it. If you go to the book Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, it speaks about when the real people are in that land, there should be no war anymore. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 2, verse 1. It says, the word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, and it shall come to pass in the last days, all right, the times we're in now, this is about to happen, right, that the mountain of the Lord's house should be established in the top of the mountains, right? They should be exalted above all other nations. This is going to happen pretty soon. It shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Many people shall come and say, come ye, and let us go up to the house of the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. Are people doing that now to them? No. It says, and we will walk in his paths, for out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, right, farming tools, and their spears into pruning hooks, right. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore. So, right, exactly. If they the people and all that, that's what they saying. There should be no war. There's no if. That ain't gonna happen. The people in the kingdom of heaven, the real people, they're gonna have immortality. They're gonna have spiritual powers. There's not gonna be no damn war. That ain't gonna happen. We're gonna do away with all the damn guns and weapons. It says in the book of Ezekiel. Let me go back to the video.
Whole nother discussion. But you and I started out. We started talking about something simple. Christian Zionism.
But it turns out it's not simple, because the core of Christian Zionism, you said, and I'm quoting you, is the...
And Zionism is not a damn word. Zion is a word, but that ism is an ideology they made up. It's the belief in something.
Understanding the belief, the theological understanding that Jews have a moral and legal...
The Prophet ﷺ said, the best charity is giving water.
False deity.
We went through the legal, moral deriving from the biblical, from the promises in our Bible, which we share with the Jewish people, the first part of it, the Old Testament.
It ain't your Bible, man. It was only given to the real people. Us so-called, who y'all call us so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man. This book was only for known people, man. All right, that's why it talks about the Israelites, as far as being promised salvation and the Lord, having a relationship with only them, back and forth from Genesis to Revelations. All right, this ain't, anybody can pick up the Bible, but anybody can't understand it. Right?
That it derives from God's promise to the Jews. And so I have two questions. What are the borders of that? And who are those people in 2026? and you're not the first person I've asked, but you're the most reasonable, most gentle, most theologically informed person, so I'm really hoping for an answer.
Yeah.
The first question was
and this man, Tucker Carlson, he came across on a video the elders and apostles of GMS. He walked up to them and was conversing with the elders, man, on video. So he knows who the real people are, man. He knows who he really goes into. He just don't want to accept it because he's a E. That's why they speak lies, man. Let me go to Psalms 58:3. Psalms 58:3. I'm gonna have to, when you do the lesson on this, I'm gonna have to kind of break it up. The video is really long and it's really edifying as far as, trying to do a lesson out of it because there's so many scriptures you could bring out concerning this. It says, Psalms 58:3, it says, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies, and that's both of them, right?
the borders. I can't get an answer.
Yeah.
Those borders are. So I'm going to give up. But the second question is every bit as pressing, which is who are the people? Who are the modern? Yes. Who are the descendants? So we know, and I believe, and I agree with you as a Christian, that God promised this land from modern day Iraq to modern day Egypt to this people, the Jews, to Abram's, actually not to Abram's descendants, as it says in Genesis 15. Who are his descendants now, and how do we know who they are?
I think they're the Jews, and we know who they are because they've always been a Jewish people. There has been an unbroken line of Jewish people, and they've lived in this land for 3,800 years. Sometimes.
And that's not even true. That's not true. You know, we know about the Balfour Declaration, man. You know, like I just brought out. You know, they the left hand side. You know, as far as the Lord and the people. They not the people that they trying to portray to be and that they claim to be. You know, they can say what they want, but they quoting certain scriptures, but they don't even fully understand what it's going into. You know, right? Abraham had Ishmael as a son. That's the spirit been having me going into this, man. As far as rebuking Islam and Ishmael and what happened with him and Isaac and stuff like that. Even right here in this same chapter, I think I quoted this. I'll read it. This is Genesis 15 and verse 13. It says, "And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years." What is this talking about? The ancient Egyptians. When you go read the book of Exodus, serve the Egyptians, which are Hamites, right? And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward they shall come out with great substance, right? When we left out of ancient Egypt, we know how the Lord worked miracles, right? He parted the Red Sea. He destroyed the ancient Egyptians after they were trying to, get us. And they couldn't do it because it wasn't the Lord's will for them to. It was for the Lord's will to deliver us, and that be talked about throughout time, right? But the new Egypt is where we at now in America, right? And when we get delivered out of this place, Lord willing, we're part of that number. We're gonna be talking about this in the kingdom of heaven, right? It ain't like we're gonna forget that, but this is gonna overshadow what happened during ancient Egypt, should I say? Since they wanna talk about ancient Egypt, right? I believe he mentioned Egypt and what he said, Syria or Iraq. I believe he's talking about this. Let me read verse. Let me see. 18, it says, "In that same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed I have given this land, from the river of Egypt," which is talking about the Nile River, unto the great river Euphrates. Right? Like I said, this is ultimately going into Isaac and as well. Who they trying to say they descend from, which they do come from Abraham, but they're the Eves, man. They're Jacob's evil twin brother, man. They're not the right hand side who they trying to claim. Let me play the
Times
video.
not very many of them, because they were chased out all over the world. They were hunted down. They were almost annihilated during the Holocaust. They came back. To this day, Tucker, they represent, you know how many Jews there are in the whole world?
Please, no, I understand. But first of all, the greatest genocide of Jews no one ever mentions was by the Romans, where they were literally banned from Jerusalem for 500 years.
Yeah, of course.
And it's all awful. And
that ain't talking about them, man. All right, let me go to Luke 21. Right, that was during the time of 70 AD, when Titus and Vespasian, I believe, went into that land, and they overtook Jake, man. That was prophecy. This is Luke 21 and verse 20. It says, "And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." Right, our downfall, man. It says, "Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains," which is talking about Africa, the land of Ham. "Let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too." Right? "For these be the days of vengeance, and that all things which are written may be fulfilled." Right? Those are the people that they are a part of. They were Edomites, man, the Romans. Right? That's who they were. It says, "But woe unto them that give child, them that give suck in those days, for there should be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people." Right, our Lord Yahushua said this, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and it should be led away captive into all nations." Right, and Jerusalem should be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And they are the Gentiles in that land that's ruined. Right? What did it say? Is that Ezekiel 35? Where it talks about they possessed our high places. All right, let me get that. I believe that's Ezekiel 35. Yep. Let me see. This is Ezekiel 35. Let me see. Salakia. Ancient high places. Yeah. Well, 36. This is Ezekiel 36 and verse 1. It says, "Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, Ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, because the enemy have said against you, Aha! Even the ancient high places are ours in possession." Right? They're the people that fit this prophecy, man. Right? They're the enemy. They have taken that land, right, and possessed it. Right? And we gonna have to wait for the Lord, man. Right? You go down to verse 35. It says, "Therefore thus said the Lord Yahweh, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which Idumea is the Greek way for say Edom, which have appointed my land in their possession with the joy of their heart, with the spiteful minds, and to cast it out for a prey." Right? It says, "Prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, and said to the mountains and to the hills, to the valleys, the rivers and the valleys, thus said the Lord Yahweh, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen. Therefore, thus said the Lord Yahweh, I have lifted up my hand, and surely the heathen are round about you, they shall bear their shame." So eventually, they're going to go into captivity, right? Our homeland is going to be destroyed. It's prophesied, man, right? So they have appointed our land in their possession. So that's why they over there, and that's why there's still war going on over there. If they were the people, man, like I have brought out, they would not be going. Wouldn't even be a conversation. It would not be at all. Right?
I'm opposed to all of that. I'm opposed to mass killing of anybody. Period. I'm opposed to
hear you say that.
I mean it.
Yeah,
and I hope we can agree on that.
I believe that.
My question is, and it's not a bumper sticker answer, it's a sincere answer. How do we know? Because what you're saying is that certain people have a title to a highly contested.
Never, and I mean never, ask, how was your weekend?
Region. They own it in some deep sense. So I think it's fair to ask, who are they and how do we know? So the current prime minister's ancestors weren't from here within recorded history. He has no deed.
Yep, he's talking about what's his name? Benjamin Nada who? You know, he's exposing it, man. This is information. This is public information that you can look up. He does not go back to that land, and his people don't. His family doesn't.
Bibi Netanyahu, on one side, his family's from Poland. They're from Eastern Europe. So how do we know that he has a connection to the people who God promised the land to, Abram's descendants? How do we know that?
Well, if you take the genealogies that come not only from the Old but the New Testament, you see that there is a historical connection through the entirety of the Old and the New Testament that details the Jewish connection to this land.
Does that include Bibi's family? How do we know that?
It even says in the book of Nehemiah, I haven't read that in a while, it says you can't even, it says we lost, I believe, the genealogy, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Let me see. I might have to look it up where it's at. Salakia. Yeah. He said you can look it up. Is that what he said from Genesis? Genealogy. So let's go to Nehemiah. Right. 7 is because through different captivities we lost who we was, man. Let me repeat what he said again.
Through the entirety of the Old and the New Testament that details the Jewish connection to this land.
Does that
Nehemiah 7 and 64. It says, these sought their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy, but it was not found. Therefore, were they as polluted from the priesthood. Right? So, over time, let me see. We lost those records, man. And these people, the elites of this world, the higher ups, they know who we are, man. They have these documents, man. But they did destroy some stuff as well. Obviously, we know that they covered up a lot of things, but they know who we are. So it's not completely gone, obviously. But we go off the spirit, right? The scriptures say in Romans 8:16, the spirit itself beareth witness that we are the children of Yahweh YASHAMIAHLA, man. So we don't need no paperwork, right? And they don't have that. He's just talking.
Include Bibi's family? How do we know that if his family comes here?
Scattered,
but how do we know it's the same people? Why is that crazy? If you say to me,
if they speak the same language, if they worship the same God, if they follow the same Bible, if they follow the same cultures and traditions, and they always pray next year in Jerusalem, and they pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and they pray facing toward Jerusalem, does that not give you a little bit of a clue as to who they are?
Let's go through.
Well, just because you follow those customs, that doesn't make you people. You have to fit the prophecies, right? The prophecies, man. That's what it's all about. It's prophecy, right? It talks about the skin color. It matters. They the only people that always say, there's a certain group of people that always say, well, it doesn't matter what he look like. He loves us all. And they one of the people that say that. It tells you, like I said, about what they look like. And it tells you about the different captivities they went in, which they'll tell you that they've been scattered, and they'll even go into different captivities. But when you go on to Deuteronomy 28:68, and it talks about the JOOs, right, the real ones, going into another captivity, into a new Egypt, and slave ships, that it isn't talking about who they say they are. Right? It fits the so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. So if we fit that one, we have to fit all the other ones. Right? It ain't them. You can't keep up this lie. This lie is over with, man. Just give it up. The jig is up. It's over. You know, the jig is up. I forgot what scripture I was gonna get. Oh yeah, Jeremiah 14:2, right? It says, Judah mourneth, which Judah goes into Jew, right? So the real Jews are mourning. They're not going to be in their homeland. They're not going to be, you know, having riches. They're going to be, you know, looked down upon. They're not going to have access to resources and abundance, right? And the gates thereof, which the leadership, right, they are black into the ground. The cry of Jerusalem is going up, right? And this happened during the times of Jeremiah. This is also happening right now. This is not talking about them. It clearly says black. I mean, I believe I can go into that word black. I believe it's Quadar. Let me go into it. Jeremiah 14:2. Salakia. Well, it says be blackish, be make dark, cause to mourn. Ultimately, it's talking about, you know, it says dark colored, right? So it's talking about the skin color, man. You know, play it again. I'm gonna probably have to end this one too. I'm gonna probably have to just break these different lessons up into different sections, man, because it's a lot to dissect and to pick apart and analyze as you watch this and break it down.
Through those things, because I would like to have a rational. This is a conversation I've wanted. Bless you. Thank you for doing this. Let's just go through those things.
Okay.
So one of the things I admire most about Israel is they resurrected a dead language in 1948. Good for them.
Well, they really didn't resurrect it. It was existent.
Okay, I'm not. That's not. That's a compliment. I'm not slighting.
No. But it is.
What was he talking about? That Yiddish that they speak, or the so-called New Hebrew, that Eliezer Ben Yehudi so-called. That must be what they're talking about. You know, I've heard that. I heard about the Elder Malcolm was speaking about that in Chicago all the time.
The first time in all of human history that a language has survived through this length of time. It's. I would call it. You might not, but I would call it a miracle. One of many.
Okay.
That you can.
And it ain't the same language, man. They didn't change that. The real Hebrew is the Paleo Hebrew, right? It doesn't have certain letters like the E and other sounds. You know, this modern Hebrew, the language that they speak, is not the real Paleo Hebrew. It's not real Hebrew.
Now, I think it's wonderful as someone who loves language. Netanyahu's parents did not speak Hebrew. Okay, they didn't live in this region. Netanyahu, the founders of this country, were mostly secular. Some of them were avowed atheists. They were not praying for the peace of Jerusalem. They weren't praying at all because they didn't believe in God. There's no genealogy linking their family.
How do nurses notice early signs of swollen legs? Because by the time swelling shows up visibly, there can already be...
These people notice, man. He may be paid opposition, but still, the truth was still
people of this land 3,000 years ago. They're not. So how do we know, since they didn't share a language, they didn't share a religion, they had no religion whatsoever, how do we know that they had a right to come here from Eastern Europe and
but they were scattered.
Take the land?
They were scattered to Eastern Europe. They were scattered all over the world. There were many in Ethiopia. They were in Russia. They were in Poland. They were throughout Asia. Jews were all over the place, but they were still Jews. But they were still Jews.
Okay, so then let me get to the nub of the question, since again, a lot is at stake, a lot of money is at stake. Land is very valuable.
They make it seem like any nation can be a Jew, and that's not true, man. That's not true. It's about you fitting the prophecies, right? And we know we're gonna have, people that look like other nations, people that are actually, Israelites. We know that every Israelite ain't gonna look, dark skinned or even light skinned. Some of them are gonna look like these people on the screen. We gotta say that, But it's about their spirit that stems from the man Jacob or Israel. They are an Israelite, right? If they don't have that sword, that flavor, man, they not no Jake, man. These people, they not no Jakes. They definitely ease, man. Play the video again.
Israel has a lot of resources. By the way, if you're accused of a crime, you can hide here. That's a pretty good passport to have. It's a good thing, right? So who's entitled to it? I don't understand, and you're very discouraged in the United States from asking this question for some reason. It's a totally rational
I'm not
question.
discouraged.
No, you're not discouraging.
Yeah.
Others do. You're like the only person I can have this conversation with. Everyone will be like, shut up, Nazi. It's a foundational question. Are you speaking of an ethnic group or a religious group?
Well, I think you're looking at...
So, when you go into the word ethnic, it goes into your race, right? So that matters, man. Ethnic. Let's go into what that means. Ethnic means, refers to a group of people who share a common culture, ancestry, language, religion, or traditions, distinguishing them from other groups. So that's a race of people, man. You know, even if you go outside of what they're talking about, right? You have, right? Let me say, Indians, for example, from East India, right? They're ethnic. They're what you call today, you call them Indians. That's their ethnicity, right? They share a common culture. You know, they share the same language. I don't know exactly what language they speak, but a lot of them, they believe in a certain religion, like maybe Buddhism or Hinduism or something like that. So, you know, and it also says right here, it says of or belonging to a population group made of people who share a common cultural background or descent. You see that? And right here it says neither Christian nor Jewish pagan. Right? So, you know, it's about who you descend from. That's how you know it is an ethnic thing, right? As far as who is supposed to be in that land and occupying it. Anybody just can't go in there and claim, oh, this is my land. No, that ain't how it works.
For many people, it is religious. There are people who may not have a deep religious connection to Judaism, but they're still Jews.
Okay, so it's
and Judaism is a religion. That's not the real culture of the real Jews. That's made up. That's something that they didn't fabricate it and came up with, man. You know? What's that, he said they're still Jews. No, man. It's about who descend from. If it didn't matter, right? Didn't it say our Lord Yahushua, the Messiah, was from the tribe of Judah? Right? It talks about genealogy. It's about your ethnic group is about who you descend from. Right? Everybody doesn't descend from the same person, you know, or the same people. Right? You have different nations, man. So that ain't true. Anybody can't just be a Jew. Right? Because or else it wouldn't matter. But that goes into Christianity too. They mix it with that. So, you know, hey, I might go into this again. There's so much more I could do. I might have to make a live video too going into this. Wish I could go live. There's just so much more I can get into. And this is what we wait for. So I'm gonna just end off on this. This is Isaiah 34. In verse 8 it says, for it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of the recompenses for the controversy of Zion. So controversy, hey, it's a problem. It's something going on, right? It's a big striving between who's who. But the Lord is letting it be known who's who. It doesn't matter who accepts it or not, right? It doesn't matter what you want to believe or what you feel, what you think. That's not fact, and that's not out the scriptures, right? So if it's not out the scriptures, it ain't true. So I hope this video was edifying as well. That was like a part 2. Lord willing, I might make a part 3 or 4. And you just add more commentary onto what they were talking about, who the people are, man. Hey, this truth was going out there to the 4 corners of the earth, man. There's nothing they can do about it. So I want to close out. I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Kawadash. Double honors to the elders and Apostle Green Millstone. To the next time I want to say about